This video will show you how to shade a sphere. You'll need your HB, 2B, 4B, and 6B graphite drawing pencils, and it can be helpful to take a look at your value scale just for reference. And I'm going to start with my HB pencil and lightly sketch a circle and just very loosely let my pencil lines overlap, clean it up with my eraser if I need to, but keep my lines fairly light. I'm going to use my ruler and line it up horizontally on either side of the sphere and just draw some lines out on either side, which could represent a surface that the sphere is sitting on. So you'll want to consider where your light source is coming from. For this one, we are going to imagine it's coming down from the top right and shining on the sphere. So I'm just going to illustrate that with an arrow and a little simple sun icon. And actually, I'll just even label top right for the light source, which can just be a helpful reminder when you're practicing shading spheres, because it greatly depends on your shading and the value and how that's going to look, where your light source is coming from. So here are just a few examples that I took just with some different light sources, just to kind of illustrate how the cast shadow sits on the surface. So the cast shadow here is going to come out to the lower left. And if you kind of follow the direction of the arrow, you'll notice that the cast shadow, kind of follows that. But taking some pictures can be really helpful just to get an idea of how light can impact cast shadows and highlights and midtones and all the other stuff we're going to add into this sphere. So look at the light source and you are going to kind of imagine where the highlight would be hitting from the light shining down on the sphere. And with your HB pencil, just very lightly draw a little circle. And again, that would be 0. So pure white, that's our highlight. And then we're going to use HB and actually shade to the left of that and all the way around. And I'm just going to be scumbling, just very lightly kind of moving my pencil in a circular directional motion, because remember, we want this to look three-dimensional. So you really want to pay attention to the curvature of the sphere as you're shading. So you don't necessarily want to shade totally flat, sideways, or up and down, because that can make it look very flat. So just look at how I'm moving my hand around, and it's kind of, again, it's very circular. I'm allowing my pencil to overlap and just, again, following the curve of the sphere and filling in this light mid-tone with my HB pencil. And keep in mind, there are so many different ways to shade. I like to scumble because it just creates a soft look without directional lines. So again, it's just circular kind of layering of the pencil, and I just allow it to gently overlap with just light to medium pressure, and I'm not pressing down hard at all. So now we've got our 0 and our 1 value. So we are going to use our 2B pencil and we are going to put in another little kind of curved line following around the sphere, as you can see I'm doing here. And we are going to start to darken our mid-tone with our 2B pencil. And I don't really need to increase my pressure here. I'm actually continuing the same pressure that I used with my HB pencil. I'm just now using a 2B pencil and layering it over top to start to darken that mid-tone. And then eventually I'll push a core shadow and we'll work on blending this all together. But again, I'm just doing little circular motions. This is called scumbling. Just allowing my pencil to gently overlap as I'm filling this in. Again, paying close attention to the fact that this is a sphere and I don't want to flatten it out. So I really want to pay attention to the curve as I'm shading. Now I'm going to grab my 4B pencil and just scooch a little ways down the sphere and do a similar curved line like I did with my 2B pencil. And I'm going to start to fill in this section with my 4B pencil. And again, I'm keeping the pressure very consistent, even. I'm not pressing down hard. It's the layering of the pencil and the fact that I'm using a darker, softer pencil that allows me to achieve this value. And notice to the left, I have a strip of light area. That's referred to the reflected light, and we'll clean that up in just a few minutes. But again, just overlapping and nice, even, consistent pressure. And just know this takes practice. So doing several spheres can be really helpful. The more you do, the better you're going to get. And then you do see these little bands, little strips of values between the different ones. And if I actually go back to some of my lighter pencils, so here's my HB again, I can just sort of scumble between those edges. And again, scumbling is just little circular, even pressure movements. Sometimes even looks like scribbling a little bit, but it just creates a very soft texture. So you could also use your kneaded eraser if you have one, and I actually just sort of like to tap it, and that can help clean up the transition between your highlight and that first sort of mid-tone. And then from here, really, I just work between my pencils and start to push those values so I have a nice range. If you want to reference a photo, you definitely can, just to sort of help you with the shadow and how things look and placement, or you can simply, make it up with your own light source. So here I'm just going back in, I've got my 4B pencil and I'm just cleaning up those little strips a little bit more and just darkening some of the values in the core shadow area and within the mid-tone of the sphere itself. And then I will start to do the shadow here with my 4B. So I'm going to layer a 4B and then a 6B just to build that value up. I feel like that's enough, but you could start even with a 2B if you wanted to. But here I'm just scumbling in with the 4B, just filling in that cast shadow, cleaning up a little bit here and there with my eraser. Just remember, you can always erase things if you need to. That's not a bad thing. It can help you clean things up and just, get things looking how you want them to. So nothing wrong with refining if need be. But just even, consistent pressure. And again, this just takes practice and time and repetition to get this down. And we don't necessarily have to go for a super blended look. There's cross hatching or hatching or other ways that you can shade. Again, I just like scumbling, especially on a sphere, just because it's very soft and I like the transition between the values. So here I am layering a 6B pencil on top of the 4B. And I'm not pressing down any harder than I did with the 4B, still that even, consistent pressure, and the act of layering is allowing that value to darken. And I can continue to push and darken these values and continue to refine. The more you layer the graphite, the more blended it's going to appear. Kneaded erasers are just really nice for cleaning up little edges or even lightening the cast shadow. Sometimes cast shadows aren't completely dark. There might be an area that's lighter or the edge might be soft. So sometimes taking an eraser and just pulling out a little bit in a cast shadow can be helpful, or even just taking your pencil and sort of softening the edge of the shadows can be great too. And then one thing you can do, this is an optional thing, but I have my 6B pencil here and I'm just going to fill in the top area nice and dark. And that just helps get rid of the outline of the sphere, helps it look a little bit more 3D when you have a background of sorts. So again, this is just a very simple sphere sitting on a tabletop with the cast shadow there, but just filling in that dark background can really make it pop and just feel a little bit more dramatic. So I think it's worthwhile to try that in. You can layer it up as much as you want, but I'm just doing a single application of 6B pencil. And then you can use a blending stump to blend, and you kind of use it in a similar way as your pencil, just very gently, very softly. You don't want to smudge it all over the entire thing, but use it very thoughtfully. You could also use some tissue or actually just continue to blend and layer with your pencils. It's really just a matter of preference. There's so many different ways to apply the graphite and have it look different ways. I actually think it's really fun to try a sphere where you do scumbling like we did in the video here, or you try one where you're cross hatching or you're hatching or maybe stippling. And the more variety you do will just expand your skills and your knowledge, and you can apply them to future drawings or paintings that you may do. But this is a very good basic practice, basic technique to work on for drawing.